I think for me, that was a conversation that I never thought I would have. I remember I walk into Dr. Ahmed's office and I'm like, do they have to wear black skirts and like long shirts like King Saud University? Or can they actually wear whatever they want? Do they have to stay in the premises up until 12 noon and then they're allowed to leave, or they can leave and come in and come out whenever they want? And he said, no, let's try it. They felt more autonomy in the university, and it was a big thing. I did get hate mail, I did get hate calls, I did get a lot of heat because of that. So it was a very interesting time, and it kind of, that time showed me that change is possible, and you can actually push the envelope to see if you can actually create positive change and give the youth more opportunities to express themselves.
Well-being advocate. I think everyone needs, on some level, a well-being advocate in their corner. It's a term used, I think, with more frequency over the last year. You know, how's your health and well-being? Well-being is always there. So when I ask you, how would you define the term well-being advocate? Do you have an answer that you can share with me?
At an altitude of 37,000 feet, we soar, with a rich legacy of honoring our guests and a unique style that has resonated with the world for 78 years. We carry the name of our country on every journey and across every sky. We are Saudi. We welcome you in our own way. We shape our present and build our future. Saudia, our name and country, our style and approach, striving for excellence in everything we do. This is how we fly.
Yeah, I would start with the World Health Organization description of well-being. So for them, it's four main elements. It's having people reach their full potential. And then it's more about being able to manage daily stress and working productively and fruitfully, and then contributing to your community and your society, your country at large. So that's the World Health Organization. Now, Maha's definition is a bit different. It's more this, like, it's close, but I think I would like to start with the intention. So why well-being? And I think the main reason why you need to take care of your well-being is because you are responsible for yourself. You're responsible for your body, for your health, for your mental health, and you are going to be held accountable for that. So then you would venture in trying to understand what well-being really means. And it's a very broad definition, the way I look at it. So you can say mind, body, heart, and soul. You can say there are different domains of well-being. So there's like the physical, the mental, the emotional, the digital now, recently with everything that's happening in the digital space. Financial well-being is important, definitely. So it's a very well-rounded definition for me. But the key part of it is really balancing all of this, and maybe integration as well.
Integration how?
So when you're looking at different aspects of your well-being, how do they all integrate in your 24 hours? So you look at your 24 hours, and I've done a lot of work and a lot of research in this space, and I looked at so many schools of thought out there. And one that I really loved and landed on was a framework that was developed by Dr. Martin Seligman in University of Pennsylvania. So it's a very simple framework that you can do every single day or every week to kind of assess where you're at in your well-being. And it's called PERMA, and PERMA stands for positive emotions. So how many positive emotions can you create in a day? Engagement is your strengths. Do you understand what your strengths are? Do you know what they are? And are you meeting them with the right level of challenge? Meaning is more about finding your values, understanding what your values are, and aligning your values with your work, with your family, with everything that you do. R is for relationships, and do you have the right kind of relationships in your life? Are you authentic in those relationships? Do you have the right support system? A is for achievement, so it's more about celebrating achievements, even if they were tiny. And then H is for health, so how you move, how you breathe, how you sleep, how you hydrate, how you nourish yourself. All of this is part of well-being in my personal definition.
Are we lacking awareness on where we stand with everything you just hit on that encapsulates, did you say PERMA? So how important is awareness, and are we lacking it? Because some people can think that they have what it takes, or they are established in a particular area when they're not. And some people cannot have it and think that they do.
Yeah.
So how important is awareness in everything that encapsulates?
I think awareness is where it starts. You need to acknowledge. First of all, you need to acknowledge that you don't know, and then you need to learn, and then things get better. But then you can read all the books in the world and watch all the podcasts in the world, but if you don't integrate the learning into your 24 hours, what's the use of all of that? So I think, yes, we lack awareness, but we also lack practice. And I think those go hand in hand. There's so much research, so much science coming out in this space, and you can know all of it, but it means nothing if you don't integrate it into your life, into your day-to-day.
So that's what you meant by integration, practicing it.
Yeah, definitely. I was very proud. Like, I have this huge library in my living room, and it's something that I'm very proud of, and I read a lot. But what really matters is, like, my favorite books are the books that actually moved me, that actually changed how I behave. Those are the ones that I hold really dearly to my heart.
Do you read the same ones over and over again?
مليون مرة.
Yeah?
I love it. يعني, in my mind, there are books that are timeless, so I can go back and read them all over again, or read some chapters, depending. There are books that I don't finish. I start and I'm like, no, this is not what I thought it was. So they're good for decor. And then there are books that I don't read, but I know deep down that there's always the right time for the right book. And there are some books in my library that I haven't read yet, but I know the time will come when I take out that book and start reading it.
Fortunately, we live in an age now where the phone takes priority over anything. And I think if the phone wasn't in our lives, we'd be doing a lot more reading. I'm a victim to that. Victim? Is that what they call it?
Guilty of that?
I'm guilty of that. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm guilty of that. The phone, man, if I picked up a book 10% of the time of how much I am on my phone,
Yeah.
I think I'd be in the top 10 percentile of readers.
Yeah.
Because a lot less people read today than ever before.
And it's reading paragraphs and pages, not, short quotes on Instagram.
Yeah.
I think that's what really makes the big difference.
Novels.
Novels or even nonfiction. I'm not a big novel reader, but I read a lot of nonfiction.
Mm-hmm.
And it has shaped my mind in so many ways. And back to the idea of, if we were not using our phone, we could have done so much more, not just reading, so much more. And you and I are from a generation who actually did that because we did not grow up with phones or smartphones. And we played differently, we engaged with life differently, and we're probably the last generation who knows what that really means.
Well, we're the last generation to have ever played outside on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Kicking a ball or bicycling or just being outside in general.
Yeah.
That's not how things are today with 7-year-olds, and I have one. It's screen is what they want.
Yeah. Yeah. And the sad thing is that screens and phones and games, they play so much on the brain's chemicals. And, they play on your dopamine.
Cheap dopamine.
Big time.
Yeah.
And that's sad. You're losing so much of your life. And when I go and speak with students in universities, or when I do a master class about well-being, I say, take out your phone and check how much time have you been using your phone this week or on average in a day. And now multiply that time by a whole year. And then see how much time you're actually wasting from your life.
I'm on it. I got a notification 2 days ago, and it said 9 hours.
Yeah.
9 hours. Now, it could be me listening to a podcast for review while I'm cycling, but the phone is still active.
يلا خلينا نقول, let's say 6 hours.
Yeah.
Okay? 6 hours times 365.
Oh, don't do it.
تقسيم 24. That's 91 days of phone
I
time
told you don't do it.
in a year.
3 months
3 months
and a day
and a day.
of phone time, huh?
Of phone time nonstop. Nonstop. You don't even have your 8 hours of sleep. This is nonstop.
We would be fluent in Chinese if we put 3 months a year to practice the language.
Yes.
You'd be fluent in Chinese in maybe 3-4 years. That's crazy. That's like by definition a hole in our productivity bucket.
Yes. A hole in our soul, actually. Not just productivity.
So what can we do about it? Like, there are apps, there are gadgets that can prompt you that, okay, too much time. You can set like half an hour a day on Instagram or 20 minutes a day on.
There's a phone jail, actually. It's like a device where you slot in the phone and you lock it and you put a timer and it doesn't open until the timer is done. Like, that's extreme. But
they're necessary measures.
They are. But for me, I think solutions come from within.
True.
So what I do is, it's very difficult to not touch your phone. It's very difficult. There was a study in, I think, Isra in the Eastern Province, and the study said that teenagers or youth would rather lose a friend than lose their phone. It's that serious.
It's that dark.
It's that dark and it's that serious. But what you can do is have a digital detox at least 1 to 2 hours a day. And that means you leave your phone somewhere else. And one of the problems is you don't, like a lot of people don't enjoy spending time with themselves. And I think that's one of the major problems.
It's a distraction.
It's distraction, it's numbing. You numb, you try to run away from whatever it is that's bothering you instead of sitting down and figuring it out, feeling the feeling and just letting it wash over you and go through you until it's done.
That's why people like go crazy over meditation.
Yeah.
How important it is.
Yeah.
I just checked the number of pickups per day, the number of times I unlock my phone per day.
Yeah. Huh.
277.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a big problem.
They say that even just knowing that your phone is next to you disturbs your nervous system.
Wow.
Just knowing without even touching it, without any notifications, just it sitting there next to you is distracting and disturbing your nervous system.
Charging it by your head while you sleep is the worst. I even heard that it's carcinogenic.
Yeah. And our system, our nervous system was not built to receive so much information. It's like drinking from a fire hydrant. You know, you're scrolling and you're seeing so many things and they're so random. They're not even cohesive, depending on who you follow. And your nervous system is just taking it all in. You're getting triggered for no good reason. And it's really impacting your well-being, 100%.
Overstimulating. I put Twitter notifications off for 2 weeks. I wasn't doing well health-wise. And I put Twitter notifications off because Twitter is where I get all the bad news.
Yeah.
Especially with what's happening in the world now.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how much I felt better after 3 days.
And I shut down all notifications in 2016. All.
So you're basically living...
SMS. Because I get the OTPs and stuff like that. So I need to have that notification.
So you operate on D&D pretty much.
100%.
And you go to it when you are ready, not it comes to you when it is ready.
Yes.
Game changer.
Yes.
You have inspired me with that thought.
I no notifications whatsoever. Nothing.
And how'd you feel?
Wallah min zaman, it's been 2016, so I don't even remember.
Yeah.
I don't remember a life where notifications existed. Alhamdulillah.
Because I would bet that 99% of us live a life of notifications.
And now I get irritated when someone gets a notification. It's like, you know, it's like...
you don't know anything about this life.
Yeah.
Wow. Impressive stuff. Yeah, the digital age is scary and only getting scarier.
It is.
More apps coming online that are demanding the attention of kids and...
No, and we didn't even get started on what AI can do and...
That too.
Bioengineering and all that stuff, you know, when they start hacking your system. I was recommended a book by someone special that talks about AI and the future of AI and how it's gonna look like in the next coming years, not too far away down the future. It's called The Coming Wave by Mustafa Sulaiman, and it has let alone all the technology and all the things you need to worry about and how it can be used for the good and for the bad. But there's a very deep dimension that really caught my attention. You know, is our world, the world that we live in today, ready from a moral perspective and from an ethical perspective to manage all of this technology? I mean, we're barely we're barely surviving as it is today with the current technology.
Yeah.
So how's it going to look like in the future? And I know that's a pessimistic maybe view, but it's also a view that really got me thinking.
It's like the owner of McDonald's is not going to feed that food to his kids. Steve Jobs didn't give his kids iPads until God knows what age, or iPhones.
Yeah.
So the people that produce this, they wouldn't put it upon their own kids. They do it for corporate profits. So there's a big moral conundrum or conflict of interest, let's say, when it comes to those who are developing the apps and why they're doing it, as opposed to what is actually good for society and our communities.
Yeah, the apps, the games, the IoTs that are coming into play.
What's IoT?
The Internet of Things. So this is an IoT. Okay. It measures what's happening inside your body. I have another device that I was introduced to also in 2016. It's called the Muse, and it's something that you put on your head. It's like a band that you put on your head, and it starts measuring your brain waves. And the quieter the brain waves, you get feedback through your headphones that your brain waves are quiet now, and you start hearing seagulls, and then when your brain waves go crazy, you hear waves, so you try to quiet your brain.
This is interesting.
Very, very interesting.
It almost monitors anxiety on a scale.
There you go. Yes, and now they have a device that you can wear when you're sleeping to know what's happening when you're asleep, and this is just like the beginning.
I use Whoop for that. The REM sleep, the mid,
yeah.
It's interesting if you are able to track your sleeping performance.
Yes.
Without going too crazy over it.
Yeah.
Like this, last night I got 3 hours.
Competitive, yeah.
Because it's all about REM sleep, isn't it?
Well, actually, it's like sleep is. I'm more and more getting interested in the space of sleep, and I think sleep is probably the most, like, the best intervention that you can do in the 24 hours, and the longest intervention. If you're lucky, you sleep for 7 or 8 hours, and it's the best biohack that you can do for performance. And if you're in deep sleep, then you're fixing your hardware. So you're fixing your muscles, your bones. If you're in REM sleep, then you're fixing your software. So you're fixing your emotions and your memory and your creativity. All of that happens with REM sleep. So both are important.
There's a good book on sleep, Why We Sleep.
Yes.
The blue one?
Matthew Walker, yeah.
Is that it? Yeah. I think when I hit 40, and I think it's one of the signs of hitting 40 is how much you look forward to sleeping.
Yeah.
I say, this is going to sound depressing, but it's one of my favorite parts of the day. I think especially when you have 3 kids and, if there was a bar chart of, or a graph of anxiety and stress throughout the day, the moment we put them to bed, it drops.
100%. Yes.
And then, getting 8 or 9 hours of sleep is luxury.
Blessing.
It's
a blessing.
So when I'm on business trips,
something you can brag about.
Exactly. Yeah. Almost like, how many minutes did you meditate for today? 20, 25.
Yes.
But when I'm on business trips, if I'm in Riyadh, away from the family, I'll really try to be in bed. If in Jeddah, I'm in bed by 12, sometimes 1, it's ridiculous. In Riyadh, I'll try to be in bed by 11, 10:30, 11. Friends would call me up, dinner, sorry, I can't, early meeting tomorrow. I might not have an early meeting tomorrow. But
meeting with yourself.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And then you get your 9 hours, and it's crazy how it solves so many things the next day.
Yeah.
You're just so much more relaxed.
Yeah, and I also heard that your morning routine is actually more important than your night routine in the process of sleep. So if you try to wake up every day at the same time, even on weekends.
Circadian rhythm.
Yep. And you get direct sunlight into your eyes at the moment you wake up to trigger the circadian rhythm.
That it's daytime.
And خلاص يبدأ العداد, starts working. And delaying coffee, which is something that I thought would be impossible for me to do. But now I drink my coffee an hour after I wake up.
You're doing all the right things.
Alhamdulillah.
All the gurus or the health.
It's like baby steps, small steps. And I hydrate a lot. I hydrate.
How much water do you drink per day?
I drink sometimes 2 liters
That's amazing.
a day. And I supercharge my water with electrolytes as well, sometimes.
You really do all the right things.
I try, again.
The coffee an hour happens. You wake up, electrolytes.
It's not something that came easily. It's not something that came overnight. There are like these small steps. Once you conquer one small step and it becomes seamless in your day, you start a new one. And it's like these small... And I think this is one misconception about well-being, that it's like these significant changes that you have to do in your life, and you have to put so much energy and discipline in achieving that. But
not the case.
No.
No.
It's these small steps that you do consistently, and then that would exponentially transform your life.
How small changes can have a big, big effect. I make the connection sometimes to a rocket taking off. If it was 1 degree off, it's going in a completely different direction. 1 degree off.
100%.
So 1 degree, delaying your coffee by half an hour, an extra half a liter, 1 hour in bed extra.
Yes.
How small changes can make a big life change.
Yes. Huge transformation, and it's exponential.
It is.
Yeah, because it's all interconnected, and this goes back to the integration. Everything is integrated. Everything, like one thing impacts the other. And if you sleep well, then you can focus better, then you can be more productive. And if you're hydrating, then you're assured that your brain has the right amount of hydration for it to work. And then you do better, and then you feel better about yourself, and then you have a sense of achievement, and then you have self-confidence. And then when you have self-confidence, you have more strength to do other smaller steps. And it's all interconnected at the end.
How did you stumble upon the world of well-being and being an advocate for that? I don't think it's something that you probably thought of at the age of 10, that I'm going to be a well-being advocate. Oh, no. Well, what did you go through in your life? A, and B, do you remember the moment when you said that you want to enter this world and be an advocate for it?
Yeah. Well, ever since I started my career, and even before that, I remember when I was 5, I would put my dolls in a row and teach them. I wouldn't play with them, I would teach them. And I was so interested about human behavior and people, and I wanted to be a teacher when I grow up and be in the heart of human being evolvement and development. So that's something that I've been doing for a very long time in my career. But I remember the exact moment when I was like, oh my God, this is really interesting. Is I read a research I think it was in 2017 or 16, about the state of mental health in Saudi Arabia. And it was a study that was done between I think King Faisal Specialist Hospital and Harvard. And it was like this huge study across Saudi. And the study showed really difficult numbers. 2 out of 5 are prevalent to mental health issues in Saudi.
It's a big number.
And mostly focused on youth. And we're a young nation. So it really caught my attention then. That was one thing. The other thing was I was working nonstop. So before 2019, like since 2010, probably, or even before that, all the way till 2019, I have been working nonstop, really. Like I would take vacations of 2-3 days, maximum a week, but I would be working the rest of the time. So I would be waking up at 2 a.m. in the morning, answering emails.
Were you trying to distract yourself?
Distract?
Were you trying to distract yourself by how engulfed you were in your job?
Maybe. I was trying to distract myself, maybe numb myself. I don't know. But I was also very passionate about the work that I was doing. And I saw a lot of symptoms, but I ignored them. Until...
Health symptoms?
Health, mental health symptoms. I started to cry myself to sleep some nights. I would be really irritated by a comment that I normally would not be irritated by. I like maybe one of the major ones was I was completely indecisive, wasn't able to make decisions. I felt tired all the time. I would daydream that I would go to the Maldives, get on a boat in the middle of the Indian Ocean, and then, like, this is the image, just take my phone and just drop it in the middle of the Indian Ocean. And that would give me so much satisfaction.
Was your phone causing you anxieties?
Yeah, the phone, well, what's on my phone was causing me anxieties, like all the work.
Yeah.
The work that I had to do, and I just didn't want to do any of that anymore, and it was really difficult.
Pardon the question, and I've been mulling over what the definition of this thing is. I've felt anxieties, and people that have listened to the show know for a while that I have experience with anxieties, much better now, alhamdulillah. What I haven't experienced is what I'm about to ask you now. Was it possibly depression?
It was a combination of things. Depression was probably part of it. I think it was burnout, complete burnout. And, you know, one of the symptoms of burnout is depression. I remember clearly I had finished a major project with Musum Jeddah هنا في first Musum Jeddah in 2019. I finished working on that. I went back to Riyadh, and I remember I heard my alarm clock, and I just could not open my eyes. I could not wake up. I felt like I was trapped in my own body. And then I was like, and I woke up, but I didn't want to move. My body was giving up on me 100%.
Scary.
It's scary, very dark. And I didn't want to even open my shutters. I wanted to stay in a dark room under my blanket and just stay there. And that's when that was the slap on the face. You know, now you have to do something about it. You can't just ignore it and pretend that everything is going to be okay. And, you know, your ego stands in the way of you doing the right thing for yourself. But luckily, I didn't have an option. Alhamdulillah, I sought help. I went to a therapist. I had like online sessions with her. And as I was explaining, she was like, Maha, you can't keep doing this. And I think you have to stop working cold turkey. You can't do like part-time, or you need ample time to recover before you can actually get back on the horse and do something. And that's what I did. I shut down my business. I found good positions for my teams to move on and prosper in other organizations. I negotiated myself out of my lease, shut down the office, closed accounts.
Drastic changes.
Yeah. And it was it was probably one of the most difficult things to do was, just to let go of all of that. And, subhanAllah, with good intentions, you get rewarded. So after a couple of months, COVID hit and everybody took a professional sabbatical. Like people were working, but they had more time to reflect and had more time to think about themselves. And 2020 was the year where I did my therapy, I did my spiritual coaching, I had my support system, my friends, my family, even though we weren't really meeting because of the lockdown. I spent more time with my family, my close family. I read a lot of books on self-help. And 2020 was the year that I cried the most. And I think it was liberating. I think that's the word, liberating, and very rewarding because you just get it all out. And I remember I was talking to my therapist and I'm like, Ish, come on, Ish, what else? What else do we need to untangle? And you go into these very dark corners of your soul and you switch on the light and you see, okay, what's happening here? And it was fascinating because I'm someone who is really passionate and like I'm very curious about the human mind and behavior and all of that. But at the other end, it was very difficult for me as a person to go through all of that. It would be what you would call the dark night of the soul kind of experience.
But it sounds to me like having gone through all of that, you found yourself.
100%.
And change and good things don't happen from easy circumstances and situations.
Yes.
Real change comes from hell on earth.
Yes. Winston Churchill says if you're walking through hell, keep walking, because at the end of the day, the only way out is through. And and yeah, I did find myself. I not just found myself. In some aspects, I reinvented myself willingly and consciously. It was It was a very heavy experience, but a very rewarding one. And you always ask Allah for better and for more, but sometimes you're not even ready for that. And Allah puts these tests to level up. You just have to level up. It's like the game of life. You have to level up, and you get these challenges. You have to level up before you can actually deserve whatever it is that you're praying for.
Yeah. Sure. One of my favorite ayahs is, God won't give you more than you can handle. And if you just live your life by that quote, yes. I'm talking to maybe my non-Muslim audience, God will not give you more than you can handle. That'll make any hard day easier.
100%.
If you really believe,
yeah,
obviously in God, and if you believe in His words,
yeah,
that's in the Quran.
And wus'aha in Arabic means expansion.
Sure.
So you expand also with these challenges, and that's what I felt. Expansion. Fi tawassu'. So expansion.
So something happened 5 weeks ago that sent my nervous system sensitized. I never knew that such a thing could happen. So again, people that have listened to the show long enough know that I get these ectopic beats, but maybe only 5 harmless ones a day. I was getting them in the hundreds per day.
Wow.
Saw doctors, saw this, called my doctor, did checkups. And they were like, your nervous system is flared up or sensitized. So give it time and it'll settle. Now, when you're in the battle, in the middle of it, and your heart is unable to settle, every 5-7 minutes you're getting a flutter, you start thinking, is this how it ends? And I told myself, I'm just going back to something that you said, which is exactly what I told myself to get through it, which is the only way out is through. The only way out is through. I was escaping it. I was running away from it. But the moment, and I'm speaking to people who suffer from depression or anxiety or any of these horrific sensations that we have to go through as human beings, mine came by way of skips. If you accept it and stop running away from it and believe that it'll leave you the moment you leave it. Another line that I loved was, whatever you stop feeding will die. Starve it.
Yes.
But I was feeding the damn thing. And it lasted for a month. Dropped 10, 11 kilos. Was doing 3 workouts a day so I can just, flush it out. But then when I read the quote, only way out is through, and, whatever you starve dies, it's like, let me just not give it any more attention. And guess what? Week 5, it left me.
I can believe that. And I think the whole game of life is to minimize resistance and maximize acceptance.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it.
Accept the things that we cannot change.
Yes. And befriend them sometimes, because, you befriend a challenge. When you befriend a challenge, you're both on the same side. And, it's like everything that happens for you, not to you. And that's...
Did you find my book of quotes or something?
Wallahi, شوف, it's...
Jim Carrey.
Yeah, it's...
For you, not to you.
It's...
Life happens for you, not to you.
Yes.
It's so powerful.
Yes, and it can get really superficial sometimes when you read these things.
Good.
But it's very different when you experience them firsthand in your darkest days, when you're sitting there and life is so gloomy and, there's no way out of whatever it is that you're going through. And then you have this very strong belief that everything that happens is happening for you. It's upgrading your system, upgrading your iOS, and there's no way that Allah would put something in your way that's not good for you. But it's saying it is one thing, but then experiencing it is another.
100%. Is it difficult to balance the physical, mental, and emotional health in your own life? Like when you went through those dark days, did you come out knowing exactly how you can juggle everything in your life? Or were you doing better physically but not so well mentally? Were you doing better emotionally but not so well physically?
Let's agree on one thing. Life is very messy.
Absolutely.
Very, very messy.
It's disastrous.
Yes. So I'm not going to come here and tell you, well, no, I balanced everything and, it's all orchestrated perfectly. That's definitely not what I'm going to say. But what I can tell you is the word balance has taken up more of my time, more of my thinking, and more of my approach towards life. And it's also something that, في القرآن, أَلَّا تَطْغَوْا فِي الْمِيزَانِ, do not transgress the balance. And that's not just for commercial purposes. This is for life in general. So when you look at mental, you try to feed your mental self with the good things, like having a beautiful, deep conversation or reading a good book or trying new things. And then the physical, again, it's like I'm starting to do this. I was very bad with my physical health. Now I'm learning more about the mechanics of my body. And I heard this quote once on one podcast. I think it was the Anders Huberman podcast. And this doctor was telling him, if you keep sitting down and not moving, you're actually signaling to your body that you are ready to die.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, I'm not ready to die. I'm going to keep moving now.
So movement is key.
Yeah, movement is key. Putting stress on your body is key because it's jumping is good for your bones. Weightlifting is good for your muscles. You have to keep putting stress to your body for it to become stronger. So that's fine. That's very clear. Mentally, you stress yourself mentally by reading new books, having these interesting conversations. Emotionally, this is where it starts to get a little bit more tricky because we are not a society that is very comfortable with our emotions. So we're becoming more comfortable, but originally we're not very comfortable. I was raised in Canada for my first 9 years, and up until 10 years ago, every time I wanted to talk about my emotions, I would say them in English because I didn't have the vocabulary to express my emotions in Arabic correctly. But now I'm learning that you feel the feeling. You have to feel the feeling until the very, very end, until your body tells you, "Khalas, I'm good to go." And
nothing inside.
Yeah.
It's all out.
You can't, you don't bottle up your emotions. We end up being emotionally constipated when you bottle up your emotions.
That's where anxieties come from and depression.
Yeah.
Negative thoughts inside that are not out. That's why therapy works, because you share your problems with someone.
Yeah, and you're being seen, you're being heard, you're being witnessed. That's why it works. And when you bottle up your emotions, they show up unexpectedly in a boardroom or on the dinner table or in a vacation with someone that's trying to help you, but then you don't realize it and you explode or you snap at them or something. That's all bottled up emotions. Or la qaddar Allah, it comes as an illness somehow. So you just need to... I know when I'm having this bad day and I feel, the more you know yourself, the more you kind of understand what's going on inside you. So I'm like, okay, there is something that needs to come out, and I schedule actually time for it. And I'm like, Yallah, tell me what's going on. Yallah, let's cry. You want to cry? Let's cry. It's okay to cry. No problem. You want to yell? I don't usually yell. A lot of people tell me, put a pillow and start screaming, but that hurts my head. So I don't do that. I tend to cry mostly, or journal, just to get my emotions out there.
Natural cry, or do you prompt yourself to cry?
No, it's natural cry, but I give myself the space to do that. So I dig deeper and deeper and deeper until if there's something that needs to come out, it would come out. And sometimes it's not crying, it may be a shiver or something, just releasing the energy out.
Yeah. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
Listening to your body.
Yeah.
And releasing the necessary energy.
Yeah, whatever excess energy that needs to come out.
So do we listen to our bodies enough?
Well, yes, we listen to our bodies when it's an urgent need, like we're hungry, so we go and eat, or we're tired, so we go and sleep. We're hot or cold, so we, arrange temperature. But when you're talking about listening to your body on a deeper level, that's when it can get a bit tricky. I think there's a very strong connection between your brain and your body, the brain-body connection. And, we know that the brain signals stuff to your body and your body responds. And that's like, everybody knows this. But maybe what people don't know is that it goes the other way too. So your body can signal stuff to your brain. Mm-hmm. It's not just a one-way street. And for example, if you're anxious and you inhale and then you prolong the exhale.
3-5.
Yeah. Your body is signaling to your brain that you have the luxury to actually exhale longer. That means you are safe. So then the amygdala chills down. So it's just fascinating. And then you have the heart-brain connection and how, there's this research center called, what was it called? HeartMath. And their findings, they do a lot of work on electromagnetic fields that are generated from your heart and from your brain. And research has found that your heart signals to your brain more than your brain signals to your heart.
Heart signals to brain more than the other way around.
100 times more than what the brain signals to your heart. And your electromagnetic field that comes out of your heart impacts your body and impacts anyone who's within 1 meter of you.
That's staggering.
Without talking.
Wow.
جديد. اكسر الروتين مع أطباقنا الجديدة من بيتزا هات جدة. بيتزا هات جدة، ذوق طعم الثقة معنا.
Being positive and its effects on the people around you. I think toxic positivity has been a coined term.
Mm.
Is there any truth to that? Do you value that?
I think the word toxic, the antidote to toxicity is balance in general. Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of toxic terms that are coming out. Toxic positivity, toxic work environment, toxic people, relationships. Masculinity, all of that. And I think the antidote to that is balance. But, there's this quote that I see, good vibes only. And I think that robs us from our humanness, to be honest. Because, what about all the other emotions? Like we have a huge spectrum of emotions. And just focusing on the positive emotions is not even healthy, because anger is a very productive emotion. When you're angry, you speak out. When you're angry, you change your situation. When you're angry, you have that difficult conversation, and you tend to, like anger moderated or contained, you tend to end up in a better situation than you first started. And so goes for grief, where you're allowing yourself to respect the loss and respect what was. So, yeah, I'm not for positivity all the way, but I'm for optimism, which is kind of different.
A healthy place to be in.
Yeah, and optimistic, realistic, and optimistic.
Logically.
Yes.
Yeah.
And for me, like sometimes my heart is way more optimistic than my brain, and that's fine. We manage to figure it out internally.
Yeah, good vibes only. True. If that's the way you carry yourself, or your ethos, you're not feeling the feelings, and that's the problem. Going back to your earlier point of feeling the feelings.
Yeah.
And it's important to feel the feelings.
100%. And you have to feel the feelings all the way. All the way.
Or else it will transcend into something that will be very unpleasant. Like anxiety.
Anxiety. You name it.
It's probably easier said than done. Don't burn out, or, protect yourself from burning out. But you look left, right, and center, you have so many friends that work like dogs, I think is the terminology. They work really hard. Corporate today is, I think, more stressful than ever. To think of bankers and lawyers, these people, they don't come home till midnight. So easier said than done. What can they do in their field where this is their career, their livelihood, so that they don't experience burnout or anxiety in the workplace?
So let's define burnout first. Burnout is chronic physical and emotional disturbance or pain that is coming out of prolonged stress.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're talking about people who are spending a very long time in the workplace, they're giving it their all, they're very stressed, we need to differentiate, or maybe not differentiate, maybe distribute the roles and responsibilities. So there is accountability and responsibility on the person, and then there is responsibility and accountability on the organization. What I've been seeing today with corporate well-being is everybody's just pushing the responsibility on the employee. You need to sleep better, you need to eat better, you need to focus, you need to go to therapy, and obviously all of that is right, but that's not the only thing that needs to happen. Organizations have a responsibility towards the people that are working in their institutions.
Uh-huh.
And we spend, I don't remember, was it 71,000 hours of our life in the workplace on average.
What's that in percentage of your life? Like 25%?
No, I think more.
Yeah, no.
More. I think it's about 30% of your life.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot of life. It's a lot of life. It's a lot of life. And as a business owner or a leader in that organization, you are responsible for the people that are working in that organization. So this is, yes, employees need to do stuff, but you need to do stuff as well. Because if this employee, let's call him Mohammed, and he sleeps his 8 hours and he does all the things that he needs to do, he wakes up optimistic, goes to work, sits in his 9 a.m. meeting, and then he sees the project that he has been working on get robbed from him and someone else gets the credit. Khalas, that's it. Your mental health is screwed, basically. And there are lots of things in the organization that need to be in place. So workload is a major thing. Poor relationships between colleagues is a major issue. Like, is this culture safe? Does it provide psychological safety in the workplace? Does it or does it not? Fairness is a big thing for a lot of employees. Do they feel like their organization is treating them fairly or not? Mismatch in values. I'm a big fan of everyone needing to figure out what their core values are, because once those values are violated in the workplace, again, it becomes really, really difficult. The perceived sense of control in the workplace. Do you perceive that you have control or not? These are all deep issues and factors that contribute to an employee's well-being. It's not about pizza night. It's not about yoga sessions. It's not about the annual retreat. If you do those, great, thank you very much. But they don't go deep, and they don't really matter if these other issues are not taken care of.
Absolutely. And a lot of it is what you do on a daily, right? Because as you said, these retreats, they happen like maybe once a year or an extra day off happens, like, whatever.
Yeah.
But what do you do on a daily to practice being grounded
Yeah.
and focused and not overwhelmed?
Yes. And what you do and what your organization does for you. And I think it needs to be sustainable. It needs to be consistent for it to be effective. Definitely. Yeah.
Tell us about RUMMAN. What triggered you to start something on your own?
So building off of what we're just talking about, we're all working towards Vision 2030. We have 5 more years to go till 2030. And we're at this phenomenal time in the history of Saudi Arabia, unmatched. Everybody's putting their all. The whole country's buzzing with giga projects and activities and different KPIs that are very ambitious. Everybody's working towards ambitious timelines and really delivering. And I feel it, I sense it. I have these conversations with people. They're so excited. You see the spark in their eyes because they're actually contributing to history. And I think the challenge for us is to maintain peak performance for a very long time and to be able to sustain it.
That's where it's won or lost.
Yes. And, the government right now is already discussing 2050 strategy, not even 2030. So we have a long, long way to go. And the people who are carrying this vision are amazing people. I've seen the talent. I've seen the dedication. So RUMMAN is there to make sure and support them because, this is unprecedented. We are in uncharted territories right now. Our education system did not train us to work with these kinds of circumstances in place. And, if you're looking at athletes, for example, if we take athletes as an example, 20 years ago, athletes did not perform as they are performing today. And they last longer, they're stronger, they deliver better results. And the reason is because they're training differently. Mm-hmm. They are looking at the new science out there. They're looking at the neuroscience. They're looking at the body mechanics. They're looking at biohacking. And they are being trained by the best performance trainers in the world. Why can't we take this experience into the business world? Mm-hmm. Why can't we? And this is where RUMMAN is coming to play. It's bringing in the neuroscience to the business world, things that have not been taught in business school. Maybe just recently you're starting to see neuroscience for business in executive courses, but it's not yet the fabric of the education system. And this is where the training comes in, and this is where all the solutions of RUMMAN come in. We're trying to bring this into the business world.
What does the training look like? What are the touch points look like if I'm someone who's going to come to you in need of your services? Mm-hmm. In a nutshell, what would my experience look like?
Well, first of all, you will be trained by some of the best people in the world. And these are global, renowned, international experts. And you would be learning about your brain, how your brain works, how you can hack your brain, how you can deliver better results, better decision-making, better productivity, better focus, better memory, all of that. You would be understanding more what your patterns are and how they impact your life and how they impact your decision-making. And if you get triggered, how can you figure out how to deal with that trigger and re-engineer your pattern for it to produce better results for you. So we focus a lot on that. We focus a lot on the psychology of a leader. Yeah.
And have you seen the effects on candidates? Have you seen change from corporations or on a micro level from individuals?
So a lot of discussions we have, and after we did one of our training programs, we did see people think differently. There are a lot of aha moments. So yeah, there is a lot of change. It'll take time for it to become scalable, for it to make this big shift within the bigger picture, the bigger society, but we are seeing results. I get people coming up to me and say, Maha, when you said this, it completely changed how I think about X. And for me, that's like the ultimate reward.
Yeah.
Ultimate reward. Yeah.
Seeing significant changes from someone saying, you have changed, you have altered the way I think / use my brain for the better.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no better validation that you're on the right track than that.
100%. And we're still starting. It's still new. We look forward to doing even more and more. And there's a lot of awareness that needs to happen. We had a client a few weeks ago, and it was an activity with their team where they would put post-it notes about the symptoms of burnout that they would have and they would experience. And then one of the HR team would come up and look at the board and read all the symptoms. And they're like, really? I don't think so. They're exaggerating. And I'm like, you can't be defensive. This is real. This is real. These are actual post-its of actual people who wrote this. They're not making it up, and they have no incentive to make it up. So it's going to take a while until people really understand the depths of it and the magnitude of the impact and the magnitude of not doing anything. They call it the cost of doing nothing is really, really stark. And
you go backwards.
Yeah.
If you're standing still, you're going backwards.
Yeah, exactly. And for organizations, it has to come from the top, I believe.
Always.
It has to come from the chairman, the CXOs. They have to believe it, and they have to role model it, not just believe it, which can get a bit tricky. And that's why we focus a lot on executive well-being because of that. And then they role model it. They prioritize it in their budgets, in their strategy, and then they have to arrange for the skills that need to be incorporated with their team. So teaching psychological first aid, for example, is something that is very important for people to be able to deal with each other and deal with themselves. And then you need to look at your policies and your procedures in the organization, your norms, your unspoken norms. And then lastly, communicate. Can't stress it more.
Communication. I was a victim of I've had experience with corporate toxicity. And it's a dark place because you don't know whether you should complain or just put up and shut up. And I think when you're not heard, going back to communication, that's where things get really grim and frustrating. But then again, you learn from difficult times, difficult days. They mold you to the person.
Yes. And then you left, right?
And then I left. Yeah, I left after 4 years of doing this. I knew when the right time to leave was. And
here you are.
And here I am. And here I am still doing what I love.
Yeah.
People ask me, did you took a leap of faith? But I never saw it as a leap of faith because I knew that it was time to leave.
It's they call it the knowing that emerges from the intelligence of your heart.
Oh my God, Maha, you are just on fire with these quotes. I love them. Yes, absolutely. Say that again, please. Putting on the spot.
The knowing that emerges from the intelligence of your heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was intelligence from my heart and head that day.
Yeah.
I got a call from, see it?
Yeah.
Ministry of Communication.
Sure.
Ministry of Media. And they said, we'd like you to join us to the G20 in Delhi to be part of the media delegation for His Royal Highness. And then I said, listen, if this is someone that's, trying to, who is this?
So is this a prank?
Exactly what I thought. I mean, you don't get those phone calls ever. I've never gotten such phone calls. I was like, sorry for being rude, but like, if this isn't true, then you're being mean. Like, no, this is very true. This is my name. This is my employee number from the Ministry of Media. And we'd like to know if you're available to come with us to Delhi as part of Crown Prince's media delegation. Are you interested? I said, 100%. So that week is when I realized that if my country is telling me I should do this full time, enough to take me to Delhi, then what am I still doing?
Yeah.
It's time to leave.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want to leave until I was really ready. Wife, 3 kids. I wanted to make sure that I was making the right decision.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but those 13 years of unpleasantries, especially the last 5, without them, there is no show.
Yeah.
Good things happen from dark places.
Yes. I believe that 100%.
This was never my plan. These cameras was never my plan. I never wanted to put my face out there. I am extroverted, but this was never part of it.
I'm very introverted.
There are extroverted introverts.
Yes.
I think you're on the...
I'm an extroverted introvert. 100%.
Because if you're an introvert,
yes,
things wouldn't have come out so easily of you. You would have been a bit more reserved.
I was. But then life happened, and you get to learn to be more out there.
With age.
With age and with experience and with specific experiences as well that really help you. Yeah.
I think suffering in imagination more than in reality helps us become less scared of anything as we go through life.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. Whether it's a fear of speaking in public, fear of the dark, fear of what will this person think about me. You give less of a shit as you age. Yes. Pardon my French. Yes. But you do. Yes. Facts of life.
Yes, and if you separate between the voice in your head and yourself, then that's a very different ball game, because the voice in your head is just like the 24/7 narrator of your life, and narrators are telling stories, and you can always change the story or not accept or not accept the story, and that happens a lot with age, when you start to become more comfortable with yourself, and you have the confidence and the authority to shush your brain and say, "Khalas, that's it. I'm not listening to you anymore. You're a bully, or you're rude, or that's not your place to make this decision.
You're not serving me.
You're not serving me." Exactly. You have a higher self that you report to, basically.
And you can only make that distinction when you have been through the trenches, experienced life a bit more. But that monkey mind is a real thing.
Oh, yes.
And there's nothing like shutting it up.
It's
Doors open when you shut your monkey mind up.
True.
Yeah. True. Easier said than done, but you have to do the work. You have to...
It's like...
Yeah. Knowing yourself and self-discovery and the journey of all of that is a long road, but a very rewarding one. To know what you're good at and what you're not will save you so much time and other people's time as well.
Yes. And, we talked about PERMA and E for engagement. And knowing your strengths is a true blessing. And in the field of positive psychology, they tell you just need to focus on your strengths. Don't even worry about your weaknesses. Just focus on your strengths. Not even your areas of improvement. Just focus on your strengths and work with those. And then you find these situations and challenges where, there's a sweet spot between your strength and the challenge. It's not over challenging, so it's frustrating, or under challenging, so it's boring. And then that's where flow happens. And for me, that's like the best state you can possibly be in, is in a state of flow. And I'm sure, Mo, with these conversations, you do get that state of flow.
If there's anything I understood from what you've spoken about today, in terms of me being aligned with what you're articulating, is the reality of flow.
Yeah.
The way this conversation has been flowing. Because let me tell you, there have been some episodes where it wasn't flowing.
Okay.
So I know damn well what you mean by flow and how important it is for the betterment of the business that I'm in.
Definitely.
Flow is everything. And it has so many different meanings, right?
Like I flow and I paint. So I work on mixed media, and I can stay flow. When you know it's flowing, you lose sense of time and you become one with whatever it is that you're doing. So if I'm painting, I'm one with my canvas. If I'm working with clay, I'm one with my piece of clay. If I'm brainstorming, I'm one with that. And, it's...
You get lost.
You get lost. And you're in such... you're in the present. You're not thinking of the past or worried about the future. You're just so in the present moment.
And present is happiness.
Yes. And that's exactly what your higher self wants for you.
Thank you so much for verbalizing that better than I think anyone ever has. The beauty of remaining present, because that's where happiness is. Anxiety is in the future. Depression is in the past.
Yes. So true.
Remain present in what you do. Honestly, these days, I'm only present when I'm shooting episodes. I'm trying to think. Yeah. Now, they don't always flow like this, not to throw anyone under the bus. But when it does, it's beautiful. Because the moment the cameras are off and the lights are out and I'm out of here, I'm on my phone, I'm thinking. Like, my phone's been upside down since we started, and a break from life has happened, and that allowed me to be present with you.
Yeah.
And I've been very happy over the past an hour and 20 minutes because I've been present.
Where else do you find flow?
Maybe playing with my children. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it doesn't last an hour and 20 minutes because they have an attention span that expires, and maybe I do as well.
Yeah.
Maybe the gym. I've been riding a lot of bicycle recently. But when I'm on it, I'm listening to Rogan, I'm listening to Tim Ferriss, who, by coincidence, has said something 5 years ago that allowed me to start this podcast. He said something that you just said, which is double down on your strengths. Don't worry about your weaknesses. Focus on your strengths. That's what will carry you over.
100%.
Yeah. So when I'm on the bike, I'm not even present because I'm listening to stuff. Like I'm being fed information and I'm not present with myself. Maybe the next time I go on a bike, I don't take my phone.
Yeah, or you can listen to classical music.
That should allow me to be more present. Road trips. I love my road trips. I haven't done enough. We're driving to Red Sea, me and the team.
That's very exciting.
On Wednesday.
Yeah.
But I'm going to have people in the car. When there's no one in the car and I'm going for 5-6 hours or whatever, I'm present. I'm present, especially if I'm taking a break from music podcasts and it's just silence, because I'll need that every 2 hours. It's like, whoa. I've never arrived at it. And my wife thinks I'm crazy. She's like, 6 hours, Riyadh. Who drives to Riyadh? Okay, sometimes I do it when the flights are full and we have equipment that we want to move. I'm like, you guys just go and I'll drive.
Yeah.
Going on a tangent here. but I've never arrived feeling worse than when I left. Now, when I tell her that, she's like, fair enough. I get worried of you on the road, especially if it's nighttime. But I have never arrived at a destination feeling less sharper, more aware, because I've thought of so many things. I've meditated for hours.
Yeah, and you're comfortable being with yourself.
That too.
Yeah. Like I love spending time with myself. It gives you that space to reflect and think and enjoy your own thoughts. And I have like this very active imagination, so I can take myself wherever I want if I'm alone. And it's a blessing, because not everybody can do that.
I think that's top tier confidence, awareness, self-satisfaction.
Yeah.
Unity, just being at one with. If you're able to walk alone, you are untouchable. But if you need people with you, I know we all need people with you, but most of the time you're going to be alone. And if you're not afraid to do something alone, whatever it is, you can really be untouchable.
Yeah. I have no problem going to a really good restaurant and just having a meal and people watch.
I can't.
You can't?
Can't.
Yeah, يمكن هنا, maybe in Saudi it's weird, but when I travel, I have no problem going into the best restaurant in that city and just have a meal alone.
I need to try that.
Yeah.
Where do I eat when I'm alone?
A lot of people order in a hotel.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
that's what I do.
why
That's
would you do that? Like, a whole city is waiting for you. Why would you do that?
Yeah, right? What an opportunity cost to stay in the room. But see, something like that, eating in a restaurant alone, that terrifies me. And I think I've become less extroverted with age, but I'm still an extrovert. I can't go to a restaurant alone. I can't. I need at least a person there with me. I'm going to try that. I want to push myself. Maybe I discover something. Maybe I open Pandora's book.
You're becoming more of a best friend to yourself now. So you would enjoy your own company.
Definitely. Over the last 2 or 3 years, I've spent a lot more time alone.
Yeah.
And I've loved it.
Yes.
I've absolutely loved it.
Yes, because I never thought that I can't stay with myself. Because people get irritated and then they start touching their phone and they start figuring out a way out. I don't want to stay alone with myself. But I never had that problem. But I think now it's more productive.
Yeah. If you can go back and tell yourself, your younger self, one thing at the age of, how early back can you remember? 5? Can you remember 5 years old?
Huh?
Remember your 5th birthday?
Yeah.
If Maha today can go back and tell Maha at 5 one thing through time machine.
One
thing, like, yeah, I mean, like,
would be not everything has to be perfect. Can chill.
You perfectionist?
Recovering perfectionist, yes.
It's a condition.
Yes, it is.
It's like OCD.
يعني مو لدرجة not to the extent of OCD. I'm talking about myself, but it has kept me from doing amazing things in certain circumstances. It has caused me to delay starting something. Again, you just conquer the chatter. And when you conquer the chatter, you are closer to conquering perfectionism. The things you tell yourself, the harsh things you tell yourself.
Where we can be very mean to ourselves.
Yes. Very, very mean. You just need to lean back. And, one of my favorite quotes is, between stimulus and response is a space. And in that space lies your choice. And with choice, you get growth and you get freedom.
Wow. That's just some philosophical, really well structured, processed, high-level thinking that you just said.
That's Viktor Frankl.
Is that a Venn diagram? Is that a diagram? I feel like that comes from a Venn diagram.
Kind of, yeah. Kind of. Yeah, because, you know, we get stimulated and we respond. We get stimulated and we respond. We don't create that space. And when you create that space and you take a deep breath, or you lean back and you give your mind time to process, you end up making better choices. Much better choices. And I think currently with everything that's happening with the digital world and what's happening in the world in general, your amygdala is hijacking 100%. So creating that space allows the amygdala to kind of chill and just you defuse the cycle.
And the prefrontal cortex uses what part of our lives? What do we use the prefrontal for?
For cognition, for making decisions.
It's the daily.
Yeah, it's the daily. It's the cognitive side of your brain.
And the amygdala is more the long-term memory.
The amygdala is more of your emergency system in the body.
Fight or flight.
Fight or flight, or flee or fawn. Like all of these behaviors are coming out of the amygdala. So once the amygdala gets triggered, the frontal lobe stops working and the amygdala takes over your body. So then you end up with fight, flight, fawn, or flee. Freeze.
How much psychology have you studied? Let's close with this. Have you ever thought about how you'd want to be remembered after a long and healthy life? What do you want people to remember you by and learn from you?
I would want people to think that I passed gently in their lives, and maybe had a positive contribution, maybe provoked them with a question or said something that made them reconsider their lives or reconsider one aspect of their lives. Maybe role modeled something that inspired them to imitate. Yeah. It's those little moments. And yeah. It's those little moments that make a big, big difference.
Absolutely. I know I said it was the last question, but one just came to mind. Happy today? Are you a happy person?
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. I'm grateful and content. I think happiness is it's momentarily
fleeting,
happy, but content in general. Alhamdulillah. Full of gratitude. Alhamdulillah.
That's what we should strive to be, content.
Yes.
Because happiness is, we're happy now, but in an hour we're not.
And that's life. It's adi. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay not to be happy. It's fine.
Yeah. I'm done with my questions, but I mean, I could, sit here for another hour and talk to you. Thank you for just allowing us to feel that we need to be slightly more aware, cognitively, spiritually. You mentioned something as simple as the damn thing we see every day, which is the sun, and we take it for granted. But how about to be thankful for the thing that comes up and goes down once a day?
Learn from it.
Learn from it. How it shows up, consistency, strength,
space. Yeah, the learning from it.
I really, 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 really enjoyed this so much. These are the episodes that I strive for. I want to put more content out like this where you really forget everything. You forget the lights, you forget the cameras, you forget the mics, and you're just having conversation with someone, deep conversations. May we all have more deep conversations with one another, because there's nothing worse than small talk, right?
Oh my God, thank you. Thank you. It drives me crazy. I hate small talk. It's like, كيف الجو? How's the weather? The weather's great. How's the flight? The flight is wonderful. And it's like,
It's the weather that gets me. It's the conversations on the weather.
I love to just deep dive. Deep dive right away.
The smaller the group, the better the conversation.
I don't like texting. I don't like, I can bear a phone call, but I love having human interaction.
How much do you love Zoom? On that note, thank you so much for everything. I love what you do. I love what you stand for. And I'm going to enjoy working with the team on editing this. So thank you so much, Maha.
You're welcome. My pleasure. My pleasure.
Thank you.
So much.
Well, we're back for part 2. I love being honest with the audience. We could have easily wore the same thing that we wore in part 1 and pretended to be on the same day where we shot part 1, which was about 30 days ago, but we're not. Yes. We're going to be real, and we're going to tell the audience that this is a part 2, done a month later. Before we kick off, I want to say thank you so much for this book.
You're welcome.
The Untethered Soul. You gifted it to me. I think one of the best gifts you can give someone is something that you learned from, which is a book. Yes. Why specifically this book, Maha?
This book helped me really understand how to deal with my chatter in my brain. Mm-hmm. It's something that, when you're in the midst of an issue that you're trying to deal with, and your brain is telling you so many things at the same time, and sometimes your brain is bullying you or saying really mean stuff to you. This book helped me really differentiate between the voices in my head and myself. And really it talks about leaning into the seat of awareness and creating that space between you and everything that you hear in your brain. So you are not your thoughts, you are not your feelings, you are not your body. You are a soul that is part of a much higher, higher purpose. So this book, the author is just the way he depicted everything and spoke about what happens to our soul and how we really understand life is just phenomenal.
By Michael Singer, and Deepak Chopra said, read this book carefully and you'll get more than just a glimpse of eternity.
Yes.
And on the back, who are you really? I think that's a question that we should probably ask ourselves that at least once a year.
Yes.
Who are we? Who have we become?
One of the very beautiful beautiful things that he talked about is if you were with a roommate, would you speak to your roommate the way you speak to yourself? Are you cordial with yourself? Are you kind? Are you compassionate? Or are you mean and bullying? The thoughts, are you listening to those? Creating that different narrative and creating different stories for yourself is one way to live a better life, basically.
Yeah, it's true. The most important conversations we can have are the ones with ourselves. We're always so overprotective about people that are close to us, that we love, and our feelings, but we talk to ourselves, for the most part, not very nicely.
And we're so into our thoughts. And I think that's another thing that he talked about is if you were going into a movie theater and you're sitting on the chair and you're watching the movie, and the movie is like IMAX and you're so into the movie and you're so engaged with all your senses, you become almost one with the movie.
Yeah.
And this is almost similar to when you become one with life, as opposed to sitting in the chair and remembering that you are observing life while living it. And creating that space between you and the screen is where you can get more wisdom, you can make better decisions, and you can choose to react or not react.
Definitely. So the reason why we wanted to sit down today was because we covered so many things.
We're gonna go back into that.
In episode
Well-being stuff.
Yeah, so we did a lot on what it is you do today.
Yeah.
And how well you do it. Well-being obviously being the overarching message, but we never got to what took you there.
Yeah.
The vessel, the hardships, the dark times, the good times. What made Maha start RUMMAN, for example?
Yeah.
What made what was your experience in at Harvard and then DePaul, and we didn't talk about all that. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't be doing my job to the best of my abilities if I didn't get that part of your life out. So at the end of this episode, people know who Maha was and what she's been through that led her to where she's at today. And I think probably the best place to start this episode, which is the second part, and it should have been the first maybe, is a question that I've opened up to a lot of people in the last couple of episodes. And I think it's a great way to kick off just to see how they tackle it and how they handle it. And that question is, why does Maha do what she does? Why do you do what you do?
What I do, I love with every cell in my body. Alhamdulillah, I got the chance to work very, very hard and do a lot of hard stuff and learn a lot, progress a lot, alhamdulillah. And right now I am able and I have the privilege to actually choose what I want to do. And for me, ever since I was very young, my passion was about sharing with others possibilities of what they can do, maybe showing them different ways, role modeling different ways, and helping people reach their full potential, bottom line. And I think that has been like a thread across everything I do, showing the way, discovering the way for myself, and then maybe when I find something that works, I like to share it with others.
We can go many different ways here, but since you took us into the avenues of education, what bothers me is that if we could find out what a child is good at, and typically by the age of 10, you can see whether the child is going to be more book smart or more physical attributes. I feel that we'd be doing our kids a bigger favor by doubling down on their strengths when the smallest hint is apparent, as opposed to them getting into college these days at the age of 18, 19, Maha, and they don't know what on earth they want to do. That's a problem.
Okay, so first of all, it is a problem, but it's also it's a journey. So it is very difficult to say that we can actually nail down exactly what children can be good at without giving them the opportunity to experience different things. So throughout this K-12 journey, we should be able to give them different experiences, and even in college, like in the US, for example, the first 4 years of college, you're taking so many electives in different spaces, different majors. You're learning a lot about yourself, and even when you do take things that you do not like, that's a piece of information. So now you know that you don't like history.
Process of elimination.
Hey, it is a journey. It is a very messy journey. It can't be 100% engineered. So I would like to know the high level talents of children or teenagers, but I wouldn't want to over engineer it. Because then you might also miss out on things that you didn't know. Like I know people who are in their 50s and they're discovering that they can paint. So maybe if they tried it before, they would have known earlier, but they might not have had that opportunity. So I think in education, it's more about offering different kinds of opportunities so kids can experiment, and figure it out and go through these experiments early on in life. And then later on, they'll be more educated about themselves to make better decisions. That's one thing.
I'll give you that.
Yeah. And for the education system, like the education system is, يعني إحنا, at least in Saudi, it is the biggest employer in the country.
That's it.
It is the biggest employer, and it touches so many lives. You're talking about students, you're talking about parents, you're talking about teachers, you're talking about administrators who are working.
The whole ecosystem.
The whole ecosystem, it's huge. It's a lot of people. So, يعني God bless the Minister of Education and his team for trying to move the needle in such a big ecosystem. It will take time. I know that there are serious steps to improve education, and it has always been on the agenda. I can't speak to what's happening right now because I'm not close to it, but what I can tell you is what's also very important, and this is something that we probably need to improve more in Saudi, is not our formal, obviously our formal education. I'm sure there are areas of improvement that we can work on, definitely, but our informal learning needs to be much better than where it is today.
Can you tell me more?
So informal learning is every kind of learning that happens outside the classroom.
Okay.
And whether we like it or not, kids are already receiving informal learning through their iPhones. They're learning from social media, they're learning from games, they're learning from so many different platforms, digital platforms, that most likely parents and teachers don't have control over. And I think this is an opportunity, it's a golden opportunity for the country to really invest in edutainment, invest in informal learning, because that's where you get to discover all these different opportunities and try yourself out in you know, horseback riding or archery or even being a YouTuber or whatever. There are so many opportunities, and informal learning, I think, is the best way to go for reaching the objective that you want, where they actually know what they want to be.
It sticks more when you are learning outside of the classroom.
Then, you know,
but that alone, that's the talking point right there. If we're both agreeing that it sticks more when you're outside of the classroom, then there's a whole question mark over the classroom in and of itself.
Yeah, and the classroom is shifting right now. The classroom, especially after the COVID experience, students and teachers are starting to handle technology in a different way. I can't speak, as I said, I can't speak for what's happening exactly today because I'm not in the system, but globally it is shifting drastically. And for me, the investment here is really in bringing education into the digital world. And that means you need to invest in games, you need to invest in media, you need to invest in AR, VR, learning, metaverses for education. So it's a huge white space for us right now.
So many things bother me on this subject. And over here, this wasn't the case, but when I went to school in England, and there was a very well-known public school over there, one of the top 10s, we were segregated in classes based on levels of intelligence. So there were 5 maths class, A, B, C, D, E being the 5th. I was in E. Now, that doesn't do anything for the student, me, in terms of belief, in terms of thinking that I can. All it did was put me down and it condescended me. I don't know if that's still the case today, but I really hope that isn't the case.
I hope so too.
Segregating based on intelligence, I mean, that is medieval.
Yeah.
You know, بالعكس, I mean, if I was in a class with smarter people, and I noticed that on the sports field, we in the first couple of weeks of school, we're all together, we're all different abilities, But if you put the good with the good and the bad with the bad will never try to be a little bit better than they are. And I think that's reflected in the classroom as well.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. Second thing is, there's a saying which the more I hear it, I feel like it's just true. And that is, if you need a degree to do it, it's not going to make you rich/happy. Education is available online now. 20 years ago, that wasn't the case. It's there. It's free. The only question is, do you want to put in the time to learn that thing that you want to learn? You have gamers. I think that's a good industry to look at. Gamers.
Yep.
They're making their first $1 million the age of 9, 10, 11. Can you believe that? I wonder, how that all unfolds and what the future would look like, where, the path to a career is not so mainstream as it was historically.
So the whole concept of the future of jobs is changing drastically with disruptive technologies and exponential technologies. You're having AI and biotechnology coming in, and drones and robots, and all of that is starting. We're just at the beginning of all of this, and what really will separate people who are successful from not are the people who have the emotional agility, the people who have the mental grit, the people who have the mental toughness, the people who are resilient and are able to bounce back, the people who have the healthy self-talk, the people who know how to regulate their nervous system when they're failing. Those are the people who are going to be more successful, as opposed to people who can punch in numbers on an Excel sheet. So.
The resilient type, the grit. I love that word.
So these are the kind of skills that you will need, the kind of skills that separate humans from technology. Like we have a heart, we have a brain, we have a soul, and advancing those are what's going to separate us and maybe even help us survive in the future.
So you did some TV presenting, Shark Tank?
Yes.
Yeah, you were so I didn't know that Saudi had a Shark Tank version.
Yes.
All right. So tell us how that experience was.
Shark Tank.
Interesting.
Shark Tank is Shark Tank Arabia is a Saudi franchise, and Rotana Khalijiya was. I never, ever, 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 like if you ask me one thing that you never, ever, ever, ever thought that you would do was be a host on a TV show. Like, ever.
You were the host, or were you one of the sharks?
I was one of the sharks.
Okay.
We were hosting the show as sharks. I was the sharkette, actually, the only woman on the show.
Shark is male?
I guess so, because sharkette is actually a word, so I'm assuming.
I thought shark goes both male, female.
Madri wallah, maybe, but I saw it written and it's in the dictionary, so I'm assuming that sharkette is an actual word.
Continue, please.
I stumbled upon entrepreneurship. I stumbled upon investment at a very, very early age. I was 16 when I did my first investment. It was Priceline.com, inspired by Prince Al Walid.
I know Priceline. Yeah. It's kind of like the Expedia.
Yes.
Yep.
And when I was 16, I started my first business, but I invested while I was at Kingdom School, inspired by Prince Al Walid, because he did buy shares in Priceline, so I did the same.
Interesting.
And I made a lot on my money. Alhamdulillah, I sold Priceline right before 9/11, because then it went down because of the airline issues. So that was my first experience investing. And then when I went into Sagia, obviously I learned a lot about investment, but it was never about investing my own money with entrepreneurs. And so Shark Tank was my first experience going on camera, on TV ever, not even like a 2-minute interview. It was the first time I do this. it was 2017 and I felt like I was ready for something different. My friend approached me and she was like, there's this opportunity. And I'm like, no, I'm camera shy. I don't like to talk in public. And she's like, give it a try. So I met the people behind the show, and I just found myself showing up to the studio and being part of the show. I learned a lot from that show. It was so much fun on set. I think the timing was a little bit early. It was our entrepreneurial ecosystem was still maturing, so maybe the pipeline of investment opportunities was not as strong. But I believe for me, Shark Tank was more of an educational program. Up until just yesterday, I was on the plane and one of the crew members came up and he's like, "Inti Ustada Maha." I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "The whole crew team wants to take a picture with you."
Because they remember you from Shark Tank.
Yes. And
look at you little famous.
And what's nice is that you get like the positive comments is that we learned, we get our kids to watch the show because having, listening to the questions, you're actually understanding more about the business, more about what investors are looking for. So it was a very nice educational show. It lasted for 3 seasons. We did almost 100 and something episodes. For me, what I learned from that is like, I worked 10 years in government and I've been trying to put, initiatives on the ground for youth to benefit. And then 2 weeks a year of Shark Tank got my message across like this. It's like the power of media is unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
And
so powerful.
Yeah, it was a very interesting, fun experience, alhamdulillah.
You got uncomfortable doing that the first time. I'm sure you put yourself out there. It was unfamiliar.
Yeah. It was a bit but I thought it would be worse. Alhamdulillah, it was fine. People were very comfortable. Like I was very comfortable with the people on set, and they were very patient. I think we started off with the show speaking more in English, and then they had to tell us تكلم عربي, speak Arabic. So I had to learn a lot of the terminology in Arabic, which was educational for me. So yeah.
Amazing. You've worked private sector, you've worked government, you worked abroad, you worked here. If you could add or change or put together one new policy, does one come to mind?
So I think one of the blessings of working in government, in private sector, NGOs, academia, investment, entrepreneurship is it's actually what the Singaporeans call the golden ring. It's like when you have a person who has gone through all of these different institutions, because each one of them is very uniquely different than the other. And understanding where everyone is coming from gives you much better insight on the bigger picture. So with that, I would say maybe not a single policy, but perhaps I'd be more ambitious and look at a national program or even starting a whole economy, and it would be around well-being. I think well-being falls into different areas of our lives and areas of the economy in general. Ever since after COVID, the well-being economy has been growing globally around, 6.5% annually growth. It's crazy. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and nobody has 100% claimed it yet. And I think us for Saudi, it's a golden opportunity. We are a young nation. We have a lot of life ahead of us. And if you start teaching kids at school how to practice habits for longevity, for a better health span, you're already ahead of the curve. We have amazing, beautiful sites in the country, and maybe having an element of well-being, whether it's retreats or what have you, that's another aspect of it. Well, tech is a huge industry.
What's that?
It's all your IoTs that can read your body signals and signs and much more, obviously. Well, tech is a huge industry where you're monitoring your body, you're monitoring your environment for better health, for longevity. Biotechnology is a big thing. Looking at housing and how to build codes that enable well-being, quality of air, quality of lighting.
So many touch points.
So many touch points, let alone the curriculum in schools and universities. We have a huge shortage in trained psychologists and therapists in the country. By far not enough for our needs. So that's another area in the space of human capital. Even military, like training your military to recover after trauma and PTSD, looking at mental toughness, all of that is part of the well-being economy that I'm just so eager to see happen for us, because we're having so much growth and so much development. We need the strong infrastructure that supports the human aspect of our economy.
Human capital.
Yes.
It was something that was on the top of John Pagano, CEO of Red Sea Global's priority list. He said, for me, I got to make sure that every single one of my 8,000 or 9,000 employees is happy. The Saudis left their cities and they came to work here. And the international people left their countries and they came to work here. If I'm not certain that each one of them has exactly everything they need, how on earth can I ask them to give me their best?
Yeah.
I was like, wow, this is like, this is leadership.
Actually, they're one of the very few that get it. They get it very well. Saudi, the Red Sea Global company.
Oh yeah? Did they jump off the page for you as well?
Yeah, they get it. And they've done a lot to support their teams. But yeah, building this whole program or whole strategy or whatever you want to call it, I think is, for me, it's the next big thing for the country.
Yeah.
And potentially we can even contribute to the world with this.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's so greenfield, like it can go anywhere.
Yes. And we have all the right ingredients to move it to a place. Not in every country you get the opportunity to start new cities. Not in every country you get a leader who's willing to be very agile with their policies and, try things out and experiment. Not in every country you're futuristic and you're trying to do things that have never been done before. Not in every country you have like this huge sovereign fund that can fund new economies and new sectors.
Ideas, missions, entities, ministries.
Exactly.
People forget the Ministry of Sport wasn't a Ministry of Sport 5 years ago.
Exactly. And I think the strength of every nation is in the strength of its institutions.
Yes, well said.
And it's from the smallest institution, which is the family, to the biggest institution, which is probably like something like the Royal Court or a Majlis al-Shura or the Cabinet of Ministers. So, and then everything else in between, you're talking about ministries, you're talking about schools, you're talking about universities, hospitals, companies, NGO institutions, everything. And if you have like a blanket policies that make sure that every human being within these institutions are cared for from a well-being perspective, what kind of nation would that be? what kind of nation? Like, there are policies across the board that you can actually implement throughout all of these institutions. You'll have the most agile, the most resilient, the most creative and innovative human capital.
It is everything. MBS was asked on an interview, what is the most expensive thing the country owns? It was Mudafer who asked him, and he said that Muwatan al-Saudi, the Saudis, he was referring to the human capital, the 20, 25, however many million we are. He's like, that is the most expensive thing that we have in the country.
And the majority are young.
Yeah.
So it's not too late to learn new habits. We have high diabetes rates, we have high cardiovascular issue rates, we have high mental health issue rate, mental issue conditions. So yeah, I think this should be a priority.
What have you let go of in terms of things that you really wanted to pursue in life that you eventually said, oh, screw it?
Yeah. Zaman, I wanted to get a PhD. And I had that idea floating, and I actually applied to several universities. And subhanAllah, the one university that I wanted to get into, I didn't get the acceptance, and I started working. I came back from the US and I started working. And then I realized that my job is way too interesting, and there are exciting things that are happening. And I asked myself, do you really want to spend like 4-5 years talking about the same topic and writing about the same topic, or do you want to do this, what you're doing right now? And I just let go of that dream. And I think, alhamdulillah, I did, because God knows, you get these opportunities and you jump on them and you start taking different routes in your life, and maybe I wouldn't have gotten all the experiences that I've had if I
Good way to look at it.
Yeah. And I still get people calling me doctora anyway, so
you got your PhD in
so I got my honorary PhD, alhamdulillah.
I think it's over-glorified a little bit. I think it's status signaling or virtue signaling. I mean,
yeah. And for me, the way I see it is, if you are someone who wants to take an academic route, then you should get a PhD, because you should be you should go deep in what you want to teach. But if you're someone who is more of a broader generalist, you don't really need a PhD, especially if you're going into the private sector, or more and more in our culture, it's starting to become less of a status issue, but more of a just credibility of knowing something specific.
Validation.
In the West, they don't even say doctors.
No. Yeah.
It's like Tim and Andrew.
I think the love for it, or the weight of it, could be something that is reducing a little bit in value, I feel.
Yeah. So far, that's what I've experienced. Like I never thought that, I didn't get this job or I didn't get this opportunity because I don't have a PhD.
Because you don't have.
I never had this experience, ever.
Yeah.
And I was like, I started my career when things were very difficult for women, to reach executive positions. Alhamdulillah, I got lucky, and with a lot of hard work, I was up there without a PhD, and that wasn't an issue at all.
I think if you're pragmatic and you know how to problem solve, you become employable. You become in a position where maybe you can run your own enterprise one day. How can you problem solve? How can you manage people? How can you lead?
How can you connect the dots? How can you persuade? How can you negotiate? How can you, figure out how to speak with ministers as opposed to speaking with, someone random on the street. You know how to use the right terminology, the right words, the right thinking.
How can you be convincing? But you have to be convinced with yourself before you can convince others of you.
Yeah. And for me, I think what really worked was doing your homework, working very hard, understanding. Like, I would read books and articles and ask questions and do so much work in the back end before you actually show up to a meeting. Like, I would actually do so much work behind the scenes to be really prepared for any meeting. And I think that took me places, because not a lot of people are really in it for genuine benefit or impact.
Yeah.
So you need to know what you're talking about before you actually try to go and convince anyone. You do that and you have like good intentions and your heart is in the right place, and then Allah helps you find the way.
Helps you articulate what it is that is going on in here into words, because at the end of the day, all we have is our words and your mind. Yeah. You want to earn with your mind and not with your time. Mm-hmm. And the moment you can earn with your mind and articulate your thoughts and problem solve, I'm telling you, people will run after you and throw money at you to come solve their problems.
Sahih.
Yeah. You have done a lot, Saraha. You have done a lot on a governmental level, private sector level, and I'm very proud to see how ingrained women are today and how much they are contributing, not just active in the workforce, contributing to a flourishing, well-oiled machine of an economy. Leadership roles, nothing gets me more excited. And you embody that, and you're the epitome of that. And it was all done by merit. Nothing was given.
Alhamdulillah.
The boards you sit on, the companies you worked at, and honestly, if your great-grandfather was to see you today, coming from a Saudi that in 1950s, I think electricity just came in, to women being almost not seen in public, to how much they're contributing today. It's a story.
You're pressing on a very special button right now, because my grandfather, Allah yarhamu, Maha Taibah, he was the governor of electricity, actually.
Huh.
He was the first electrical engineer in Saudi. He studied in the US, came back, and he was the governor of electricity, and he was the guy who linked he spread electricity throughout the country. And when he passed away, kan ismo Abu Noor, because every single small village had electricity through the efforts of Sharkette al-Kahraba company, the electrical company, and he was leading it. And for me, like, he's my North Star. He left us huge shoes to fill, because he wasn't just a government official, but he was a guy of philanthropy and charity, and he was just an amazing person. And as you were saying, your great-grandfather or my grandfather would be proud, because he actually, he left me like a letter, and he put it in an envelope, and he said, إلى الدكتورة Maha Taibah باعتبار ما سيكون. And it was like his way of saying, just keep going, just keep going. Yeah.
So nice. Well, we see where you get your grit from him.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you, Maha, so much.
You're welcome.
Really enjoyed this. We're going to stitch both episodes together, and give people a treat
Inshallah,
of everything you've been through, what you've done. Yeah. Amazing. Really enjoyed this. Thank you.
Me too. I really enjoyed it.